All right, welcome back, guys. Yes, we are here once again. This is this week's episode of A Conversation with Kely. It's not our only episode, though, this week. We will get into that at the end of this video, obviously. I am, of course, joined by my lovely co-host, Allie. How are you doing today?
I am fantastic, and shout out to One Tree Hill.
I still have to watch that show, but we're not here to talk about One Tree Hill. We're here to talk about everything that went down this week on Big Brother Canada. It was a pretty interesting week for sure. Nothing like we've really ever seen before, I would say. Definitely very different. But before we get into all of that, we are going to bring our guests on for this week. So in terms of guests this week, we had a bit of a last minute switch up. We were supposed to have someone, and then it really didn't work out. They unfortunately were not able to join at first. But thankfully we were able to get someone who graciously decided to step in. So here he is. We haven't seen him in a while, but here he is, Mike Vacarro.
Hello.
What it do, baby?
Yes. That is what Jed says literally every time he votes. But how you doing?
Great. Good to be back.
Welcome.
That's good. Yeah, it's good to have you on. But before we do start off, Mike, just brief thoughts on your thoughts on this season so far. You liking it? You disliking it? What do you think?
This season has really captivated me, and I have not been this invested since BB Can 6, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think this is definitely a really, really well done season. And this week especially, it's, again, very different from what we've normally seen, obviously with the invisible HOH in play and things like that. Also, we are going to try something a little bit different today, mainly because of the fact that this is Allie and I's podcast. We're both going to take turns reading the notes that I ended up doing, just because of the fact that it's not my podcast. It's both of our podcasts, and I wanted to feel that way. I want her to get an equal amount of stuff to say. So we're going to take turns with that. We're going to see how it goes. I hope it goes well. But we're just going to start off here talking about everything that went down on Monday's episode. Now, right off the bat, Invisible HOH is introduced once again, and the comp. Look, here's the thing. I've said a lot about how I like the comps in Big Brother Canada, but I have to be honest, I don't really know what this comp was supposed to be. They're like dropping rocks and like counting them, I guess.
Yeah, it was a counting comp.
Yes, something weird like that. They didn't really present it all that well. Maybe I'm just stupid. I don't know. But basically, the tiebreaker comes down to Tera and Vic, who also received the slop pass, which is really interesting, the way that she ended up getting that. And Victoria ends up taking the win. And she's the first invisible HOH. And how do we feel about this? Do we think this was something that she needed? Do we think she should have gone for it? What do you guys think?
I don't think she needed the invisible HOH because she was already in a good position.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think she necessarily needed it.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think that, I understand selfishly why she wanted it, because she wants to build her resume and things like that. And she also wants something at the end so she can be like, I was the invisible HOH. But truthfully, she came out of her HOH week completely unscathed because of how well she maneuvered and things like that. And she wasn't really on anyone's radar, like, at all. And if she was, it wasn't like, in a major way where like she needed it. So yeah, I don't really think she needed this very much at all. And, we'll get into what she ended up doing. But immediately when coming back into the house, there's a huge sense of paranoia. Everyone is just not knowing who to trust. And I like that a lot. I like the idea that, the invisible HOH gets you to literally question everyone, every single move that someone is doing. When someone's talking to you, it's a really interesting idea. And I think it changes the game in a really fascinating way. And Victoria says it's very hard pretending she doesn't have this, and she feels the people are going to quickly figure it out that it's her. And we'll talk about what ended up going down there. But again, when it comes to Victoria and her pretending that she didn't have this and things like that, that really doesn't last all that long at all. Which babe, you can get into reading what happens next.
Yeah. Well, Tera is like feeling extremely terrified, and she obviously hopes her and Tina.
She's terrified.
Tera and Tera.
Tera is terrified. Yes.
She hopes her and Tina don't end up going up, and I guess she feels anyone other than Jen Ty would put the two of them up, which is pretty accurate. Like I'm sure they would.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the thing with that's interesting about Tera and Tina is that they're two of the only people, at least this week, that have not like had their names out. And so you can see why she's starting to get a little bit worried, because they're getting down to jury and their names haven't been out at all.
That's true. And then Tera tells Austin and Breydon she wants to work close with the oddballs this week and prove her loyalty to them, and hopes one of them won it.
Yeah, so once again, playing that middle game that she's been kind of, trying to do all season, and it's still kind of working for her. And I will be honest, with the comments that Tera has said recently, I've significantly grown colder towards her, so to speak. I'm not really a big Tera fan very much anymore. But I do think this is working for her so far, at least. This does seem to be working, playing this middle game. And especially this week, it definitely seems to be working out for her.
Yeah. And Breydon, Austin, and Rohan feel Jen Ty may have gotten it. Everyone feels so sketched out. Ty feels him and Jed are going up this week. And Victoria is elated that she won the HOH and knows she has to act normal and knows she can't mess this week up. Yeah.
You can see that she's really worried that, because obviously this is a very important thing, but she has a lot of power here and she knows she has to play this right. And going back to Ty and Jed, I mean, this is what I thought she was going to do. I thought she was going to put up Ty and Jed because there is an obvious trio in the house. And while this season is very much a duo season where like everyone's kind of in like a duo of sorts, there's one very clear trio in the house, and she doesn't exactly end up doing that. What do you guys think? Like her not using that, what do you think it was the right move for her to work with Ty and Jed? What do you think?
I kind of want to give Jed and Ty some credit there too, because this twist was very much meant for one of them to go, and they managed to navigate their way out of it.
Oh yeah. I think it's definitely very impressive that they were able to not end up, in any danger really this week at all.
I think the closest they've come to being in danger is literally one of them being up for elimination in the first week.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's really it. They really have not, especially Ty. Ty hasn't even been considered as there was that one week where Victoria said she was going to do it, but she wasn't ever actually going to do it, which is really impressive, I feel like.
Yeah.
Oh, you had one more note?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ro says that the Oddballs alliance is not as tight as it once was and feels Vic maybe playing both sides, basically because, Ro and Victoria are playing very messy and very villainous.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you can see why he's really worried about that happening, because of the fact that, the Oddballs was very tight, but Ro took that shot, what ended up happening last week with Kyle gone. It's pretty clear that it's very much a split house in this way, but also the fact that they were willing to sell Victoria out and things like that. The Oddballs Alliance just not as tight-knit of a group as we thought it was, which again, we talked about last week. It's really interesting how we said before, it's like the better version of Faute, but it feels like they're kind of turning into what Faute ended up being.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy the way that ended up going. But Tera tells Tina and Kiefer that she came really close to winning it, but it didn't happen. And Tina says that they just need to hope whoever has it doesn't end up going for one of them. Again, very worried that they could potentially end up going up there. But again, I think this really speaks to just how good these two are playing the middle in that way, how much those two are doing a great job of not really being on anyone's radar. I don't think it's going to last for that much longer. I'll say that right now, obviously without getting into spoilers for what happened for the next week. But I don't think this is something they're going to be able to pull off for that much longer. But the fact they've been able to pull it off as long as they have, I do think is really impressive.
Yeah.
And so Vic says that she trusts Kiefer implicitly. And this is where she does something that I really didn't think she was going to do. She basically tells him that she has the HOH, and she tells him that he's safe this week and that, you know, he really has nothing to worry about. And I talked about before how Kiefer should kind of be Vic's number one right now because they're in very similar positions where they're both clearly at the bottom of their alliances because, you know, Sunsetters were willing to sell Kiefer out and then Oddballs were willing to sell Vic out. So they're definitely in similar positions in that way. But in terms of what she does here, you know, where he says this like this amazing move for her and that she could go down, she keeps like saying, no, I don't have it. Then she says she does have it. And it just, I don't know. What do you guys think about her deciding to tell Kiefer? Was this the right move? What do you think?
I do think it was right for her because, like, I do think this alliance does work for her, even though I'm not really a Kiefer fan right now.
No, not at all.
But like, I don't really like him at all. But like they definitely work well together just because they are in that position where they both have no duo. So I guess it was good for her in that sense.
Yeah, personal feelings towards Kiefer aside, I agree. I think those two could work really well together, considering they're on the bottom of their respectful alliances.
Yeah, I think definitely I think her working with Kiefer is the best bet. I'm just not sure if she should have actually told him that she got this, because it's just one of those things where, you know, even though, yes, this is someone that you feel good with right now, as the weeks go on, he could very well sell her out for this if they have some kind of like fallout or something. So I just don't know if this was the right move for her to do. I get that she wanted Kiefer to know that, like, you're safe, you have nothing to really worry about. But Kiefer just came off of an HOH week anyway, and it's one of those things where he probably is feeling kind of good because Kiefer's getting very cocky in the house. It's pretty clear he's getting cocky. I think even personal biases aside, it's clear that he's gotten very cocky in that way, and he doesn't really feel like he's going to touch the block anytime soon. So I don't even really think she needed to tell him that because of how he was feeling. But I do, like I said, I do definitely think that her working with Kiefer is probably her best move right now. I just don't know if her telling him was the right way to go about it. But because she's the invisible HOH this week, not only, you know, does she not get the HOH room, but she's also her own Wendy's date this week. And this video from one of her friends cheering her on, and
party of one.
Yeah, and like
kind of Wendy's date.
Yeah, the Wendy's date, I always say, is very important because it shows where people's loyalties lie and who they really do want to work with in the house. But this week, we didn't really get to see a ton of it because obviously, you know, it's the invisible HOH. So we were kind of robbed of getting to see it. They honestly didn't even really need to show this, to be honest. Like it felt more like when, you know, they do like that montage of like them getting to see like their family members and shit than like anything. That's what this really kind of felt like to me.
Yeah. Well, and then, oh, sorry. Do you want me to start mine?
Yeah.
All right. Jed, Ty, and Ro aren't sure who it is, and they suspect it might be Ty at first, and they decide to solidify a 4 with Austin and Breydon, which Austin just feels like it's a cover-up for one of them being the HOH.
Yeah, Austin, I think definitely, you know, aside from what ended up happening, I think she played this really well because it's like Jed and Ty haven't really talked to her at all. They haven't, you know, really tried to solidify anything. So it does feel very suspicious with them suddenly being like, yeah, let's make a 4. You know, that's a good idea. It's a little weird the way they just randomly included them in that. So again, I think it is impressive what they were able to do, but this is one of those things where I do feel, let's say one of them were the HOH, this really could have gone badly for Jed or Ty here.
And then Ty asks Vic if it's her, and she denies it, and she says she will lie throughout the entire week. Ty says if it is her, she's probably good, even if she's not going up. She says it may be Ro or Beth, and that if it is her, she'd keep the noms to herself. And Ty says people act a certain way when others are watching, but when they're not, they act differently.
Yeah, and this is definitely a big part of this episode. Sunday's episode, a lot of it is Monday's episode. A lot of it is just them sussing each other out and really just kind of second guessing everything they said. And for someone like Vic, she did a really good job of acting and making it seem like it wasn't her, but you can also tell that like they're definitely onto her. Like Ty and Jed are pretty clear that it's probably her. And so I don't think they did a great job with editing this week's episode, because at least from what I understand, it was pretty clear to most of them that it was Victoria, but they really try to run with this narrative that it might have been Ty, which I don't think anyone actually, aside from a couple people, thought that was a possibility.
Mm-hmm. And then Vic tells Jed, Ty, and Beth that she wants to be a Final Four with them in the end, mainly to cover up the fact that she's HOH, which
is a horrible move, may I say.
I don't think that's a good move for her at all, because they would obviously take her or take each other over her.
Yeah, she goes at 4 if she doesn't win, a comp there.
Yeah. Victoria says she thinks she might go for Austin and Breydon this week, which is pretty bad because they were supposed to be an alliance.
Yeah.
But because of how much they've fallen out when she was out of power, she tells Austin she'd put up Ty and Jed if she was HOH. And Austin says if the two of them went up, Ty and Jed would become bigger targets at that point.
Yeah, and this is definitely, like I said, not, I think, what anyone would have expected her to do. They probably thought she was going to put up Ty and Jed. I did understand why she wanted to go about it this way, because if she puts up Austin and Breydon, they're not going to think it's her. They're going to, I think what her intention was is that they're not going to think it's me. They're going to think it's someone on that side. This will get them to target one of Ty or Jed, but it really doesn't end up going the way I think she wanted it to, because I think what started off as her trying to cover up the fact that she was HOH honestly made her look a little bit more visible in that way, that it was her.
And Victoria doesn't like the fact that Austin is talking to her now when last week she threw her out.
Right. Yeah. Because they were.
I definitely wish they actually made some kind of final 2 deal, because I think those two could have dominated if they actually stuck together.
I think so too. I think the Bossy Glossies really could have done some serious damage in the game. And I think what ended up happening was just they sold her out for some reason, which I said at the time was a good move on their part for them to do that, because it is someone from their side. Why not go for someone like a Tina or a Tera? Why go for Vic? And I think if they had not done, and a lot of people I've seen are placing the blame solely on Victoria, saying that this was just an emotional move and things like that. But I do think this is kind of, Austin and Breydon's fault that this happened, because if they had never done what they did and even entertain the idea of it, she would have never even considered putting them up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like it was a move based on her own emotions because of last week, but in the same token, if she did do Jed and Ty, it would have been pretty obvious it was her. Considering Ty was the other person that was sus, and I don't think anyone would nominate themselves other than the Pax Bros, but
Right. Yeah. It's one of those things where it comes down to the fact that she just should not have won this, because it would have been too obvious if she put up Jed and Ty. But I do understand what she was really trying to do here. So Kiefer reveals the have-nots for this week, which were chosen anonymously by the HOH. It's Austin, Breydon, Kiefer, and then Victoria makes herself a have-not, basically to quell any suspicion that it's her. She doesn't want people to think that it's her, and she throws out the 3 people who really haven't been selected as have-nots yet. This was her rationale with that, and she says she needed to do this because she wants to pin it on Jed, Ty, and Beth, and she wants to make it clear that it is one of them. And Kiefer is feeling really great about this week, as he seems to be all the time now. He's just, so happy that this happened. He thinks for sure after the HOH pick that it's her. He can see that she's trying to pin this on Beth, Jed, and Ty, and he seems perfectly fine with that because it's not her, because it's not him, obviously. And Breydon is seeing through this. However, he thinks that Ro might be the HOH here, and Jed, on the other hand, thinks that it's them. He thinks that it's possibly Breydon or Austin who did this. And Victoria is really unsure who. So, he really thinks that it could be one of them. And ultimately, she has a lot of choices here. She decides to nominate Breydon and Austin. And what do you guys think of her nominating Breydon and Austin, but also making them have nots? Was that the right way to go about this, or do you think she could have done this differently?
I mean, I feel
it
like
feels dirty, but at the same time, hey, that's the game. So
pretty much.
Well.
Yeah, I do think she should have at least waited some and just see if they can get back on better terms.
Yeah,
she should have just put up Tina and Tera or something.
Yeah, I think she definitely
would have been a good move this week,
or just Beth and Tera or whoever.
Yeah, I think she definitely could have put up Tina and Tera, but again, at the same time, I understand, what she was really trying to do with pinning it on Beth, Jed, and Ty. And even after she puts up Austin is convinced that it's Ty that's HOH, or at least she says that in the diary room. I don't know if she actually thought this, but this is what she says, that she thought for sure that Ty was the HOHer. So I do get what she was trying to do. And also Austin keeps putting a lot of emphasis on the fact that she was also a have-not, but I don't really understand why she did that. She wasn't a have-not before, so it made sense that she was eventually going to be one. Like, this should have been something that she saw coming. So I don't understand why she put so much emphasis on that. But again, I do get what Victoria was trying to do here, at least. Did it work? Well, that's a different discussion. But anyway, that's everything that happened on Mondays. But Allie's going to start off by telling you what happened on Wednesday's episode.
All right. Well, Victoria feels this was the right move since the two of them didn't talk to her at all last week. And then Austin and Breydon feel that it's probably Beth, Ty, or Vic who put them up. Vic comes in acting shocked and says that maybe this could be a backdoor plan, but Breydon thinks it's pretty clear they're being put up as a duo. They hate that they were put on the block and on slot.
And again, that's the game. That's the thing. Like, they keep putting emphasis on it, but that is the game, and that is something that they probably should have recognized was going to happen eventually.
Yeah, Beth makes it clear to the two of them it wasn't her, but they aren't sure at this point who would have done this. Beth then goes to the Sunsetters, who are freaking out. They then got out of this. Jed feels this was a big missed opportunity to get one of them out, and that him and Ty are the big physical threats, but they relied on their social game the whole time. Yeah, they haven't won any comps besides Jed winning a veto.
Yeah, which is really funny because Jed and Ty keep saying, like, oh, we're the big physical threats here, and it's like, no, you're fucking not. Like, you've won like one comp the whole season. Like, there's not.
Yeah, Ty hasn't won anything.
He hasn't won shit. Yeah.
I feel like they're going to be targeted. I could see them being targeted in the double.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. I think that could definitely happen.
Kiefer doesn't plan to tell anyone that Vic is the HOH because it's a tough position for her to be in.
Which was smart on his part, for sure. I like that he, wasn't willing to tell anyone. He wanted to stay true to, Victoria and things like that. But again, I just don't think she should have told him. I don't think that should have been a thing, because then he could have really been more suspicious of Jed, Ty, and Beth. And obviously that didn't end up happening.
Yeah.
So anyway, Ty checks in with Breydon and says it's probably either one of the three of them or Victoria, but he makes it clear to Breydon that it isn't Ty, which again, he really isn't sure about. He's not sure that it isn't, Ty that did this. He thinks that it could potentially be him. And Austin and Breydon are then talking about who they should pick as house guest choice. And obviously, because of the fact that he was Kyle's number one, they think Rohan would be a good option and asked if he'd take them off, which he says that he would, which, we'll get into that in a little bit. But Victoria comes in and Breydon says that people think that it's her, which she claims she wouldn't do when she tries to pin it on Beth, and makes it clear that Beth is deliberately keeping the boys off the block. And I thought this was good on her end. She did a good job of rationalizing how it could be Beth. And basically she says that she's keeping them off the block to ensure that they're safe this week. And Breydon doesn't really understand why she would ruin her own game if it was her. And so he thinks that it might be Ty, but I think really he thought that it was Victoria at this point. I really do think that there was definitely a possibility that he thought, yeah, this probably could be you. This isn't really making sense. And again, I think the rationale made sense that Beth would do this because she didn't want to put them on the block, but it also would look too obvious on her end if Beth were to do that. So what do you guys think about Victoria's rationale here? Because if I'm not mistaken, she also said she wanted to put Beth up as a pawn, possibly, and as the replacement nominee if there was going to be a veto here. So what do you guys think about her going about it this way?
Want to go?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's how I feel too. It's an interesting move for sure. I'm glad we agree on that.
Spoken like a true, I don't know.
Yeah, I honestly, in all seriousness, I think this is where things get messy for Victoria, because while she was doing a good job of trying to throw Beth under the bus, at that point, it just speaks to it just goes back to it just goes back to her probably not wanting it. She should not have wanted this at all, because now she's just in a very unfortunate position where she needs to keep pinning it on other people, but it just didn't really work out. And I do agree, Marcelo, justice for the bossy
glossies, yes.
Yeah. Very much robbed. It's very
I honestly think they should just go for Breydon this week too.
Yeah, they could have potentially done that, but
he's kind of there and he follows Austin.
Yeah, so that's that's what ends up happening there, and Austin and Breydon then draw the veto, and Victoria ends up picking herself, which I thought was really funny. That she gets to go in and she actually picks herself, which is good for her, because people
very clever move.
Yeah, that she is the invisible HOH, and Ty and Ro also are picked, which is good because people do think that one of them could potentially be the invisible HOH here. And Austin thinks that if Victoria is going to win, she's going to pull one of them down, and that Rohan also would. So she thinks this is a really good, move for both of them. This is a really good draw, and they feel this is best case scenario, and that they have a 4 out of 5 chance of this actually working out for them. And, do we think that this was their downfall, their naivety? Is this the thing that really, hurt Austin and Breydon this week? I think that
they should not. Ro should not have been picked.
Yeah, I think that was definitely not a great move. It's also not good for Ro because, again, he's just going to keep winning vetoes and things like that. And we'll get into what ended up happening with the veto comp, which and yes, Marcelo is correct. Victoria was not the HOH. It was in fact him. And you did a good job this week. You pinned it on Victoria. Nobody suspected it was you. So I would say this was a great week for you, Marcelo. Definitely up that resume. We love to see it.
It was Agatha all along.
Yes.
The veto cop happens, and they're given a puzzle of some sort. Rohan ultimately ends up winning the veto. Austin thinks for sure that he is going to use it, but Tina proposes to him that if he uses it, one of her Tera would go up. Austin is pissed that he wouldn't use it because they were supposed to be close allies, especially because Kyle wanted him to protect her.
Right. I mean, he literally said to them he was going to use it. So I don't understand why there was a doubt in his mind that he was going to. I didn't understand his rationale here at all.
He pulled a Zach and just cout and pussied out of it, kind of.
Yeah. It's basically what he did. I mean, he ended up doing it mainly because of the fact that I guess he just didn't want to. He wanted to prove his loyalty to other people. But what I don't understand is that he wants to stay loyal to the Oddballs Alliance. At least he says that he wants to. He's already worried that there's cracks in that foundation. Why wouldn't you then use this HOH to prove to Austin and Breydon that I have you? I want to work with you. I want you to stay in this game. But also, he's supposed to be really good friends with Kyle. And if I was Kyle, I would be absolutely pissed at Ro right now. Like why the fuck wouldn't you use it? Because Kyle's words to Ro, and I quote, were "take care of Austin." Like when he left, like, he wanted Ro.
When he said "take care of Austin," that's not what he meant by that.
Yeah,
he didn't mean get her out of the game. He meant take care of her.
Right, and make sure that she was like protected and shit. So clearly, Ro did not understand exactly what he meant by that.
And Beth feels very close to Jed, and it seems like they're the showmans now. Ro thinks for sure Ty is the HOH and feels that he is playing their game if he uses the veto. Tina and Kiefer go to talk to her and says they don't think he's going to use it. And Vic says she's scared about the replacement noms and is very worried Ro is going to use it.
Which, I mean, I definitely can understand why she's worried, because it's like, how does she come out of this, and not make people think it's her? Because at that point, if she puts up like Beth or Ty, because that's probably what she would have done, right? She would have put up one of them. And again, it just speaks to the fact that she just should not have gotten the HOH here at all. And I think that's really what ended up hurting her. But for some reason, Ro stupidly decides not to use the veto this week. He leaves Victoria's noms in place. I don't understand why he would make this move, but Austin is understandably pissed about this. She feels this was a big mistake. She says she's not going to play nice anymore. Still saying that Ty is the HOH, but at this point, I don't really think she thinks that. I think she's pretty certain that it was Victoria. And again, I don't understand Ro's rationale here very much at all. I think that he absolutely should have taken at least one of them down, just so, because one of them are realistically, if he, one of them is going to go this week, and one of them, let's say like Austin goes, you want to stay good with Breydon, or Breydon goes, you want to stay good with Austin. And the way that you do that is to pull one of them down and let them know, like, I want to work with you from this point forward. I want us to go far in this game. But all he really did was basically just fuck over two of his closest allies that also would have probably boded well for him. Like that's the thing. Like, these are two people that definitely would have had him in this game. So it's not only just the fact that Kyle told him to protect Austin, it's that Austin would have done the same for Kyle. Austin would have done the same for Ro. Breydon would have done the same for Ro. And I just don't understand why he didn't do that. I guess he wants to be the villain of the season, but it feels more like he's more like the chicken of the season, because he keeps like chickening out of doing things that he very much shouldn't have here.
Yeah. He's just playing really messy.
Yeah, and not in a good way, not in a way that's helping him at all. Like it's fun to watch, but it's really not working out. And this is exactly what it is. They know you're coming in. They know you're coming in. And
yeah, it'd be like that.
Yes.
He did get very emotional after the VO meeting, so I do.
I'm coming into the game at jury phase.
Yeah, that's the twist. That's the twist. You did text me the other day, what if I was in the Big Brother Canada 9 house, and maybe it's because of the fact that you are in there. So it's a possibility. And yes, I am making this a term, the chicken of the season. That is a way to play a game. You are a chicken. You do you have times where you can do things that will benefit your game, but you don't do them. You're playing like a chicken. There you go. Chicken of the season. Make that a thing, please.
Yeah.
The Popeyes Alliance were the chickens of the season.
I mean, I don't know if it's a good alliance, because if you're not going to make any fucking moves, it's more like a nothing alliance, especially
chickens of the season.
You're gonna sell out two of your allies like that. But anyway.
I do prefer my chicken seasoned. So.
Me too. Crispy chicken, that's where it's at.
I could go for some chicken strips right now.
I would love that. I'd love some chicken strips, some crispy chicken.
Well, maybe since you're in the game, you could just ask Rohan if he ever wins HOH.
Exactly. Yes, Jazzy gets it. Chicken with their head cut off. That's exactly what Ro is doing right now. That's definitely the way he's playing.
Doesn't that mean they're lost?
Yeah.
Which, metaphorically speaking, would work. It's accurate.
Okay, so getting into Thursdays.
Yes.
Austin feels betrayed and frustrated by Ro and feels like she should have stuck to his word.
Mm-hmm.
Tired of the fakeness and doesn't understand why Austin is making more unnecessary enemies this week, and that although she is lying to Austin, she doesn't know that yet. And also, Victoria's fake song should be the new song of like the year, honestly.
Oh yeah, I love that. I loved her fake song that she was doing with Austin, and I do understand again why she had to make this move, because she didn't feel good with Austin. But I think what she should have done here is like have a conversation with her, be honest about the fact that like, you know, she didn't like the fact that she was, you know, selling her out and things like that. And I think that definitely could have potentially saved Austin and Breydon could have gone. I think that's what Victoria should have done here. But that's not what ends up happening very much at all.
Rose said it killed him to not use the veto, which he should have.
Yeah,
and
he
says,
I mean, if it kills you not to use it, you should have fucking used it.
And says he couldn't put his neck on the line, worried that it would have angered more people within the house. Like, who cares? It's your game.
Little does he know he was originally going to be the person they were going to throw under the bus for this week.
Like, sis,
yeah, he was. He was going to be the pawn.
Sis, though, it's not their game; it's yours.
Exactly.
Yes.
He said this is having an emotional toll on him, and he wants to see people go far in this game.
But again, if you want to see people go far, you should save those said people that you want to see go far. Again, his logic here is very confusing. This is very flawed logic on his end, and I don't get what he's trying to do.
Me neither.
So Breydon goes to Victoria, and this I liked a lot. He goes to Victoria just to make sure that he's good with her, and she says she's just really annoyed by Austin. She's not talking to her about anything once again. She says she's not very good at being fake and things like that, and this was definitely not great for her to do with Breydon, because this is definitely going to, I think, further suss Breydon out that it is her and that she is the invisible HOH this week with the way she's talking about Austin. And Austin comes in, Victoria immediately leaves the room, and he tells Austin and Tera that people were saying things about her all week, and Austin is annoyed because no one's really spoken to her all day, and she's very annoyed about it. So it's not that she's not campaigning, it's that people aren't really coming to her for her to campaign. And I think the one thing Austin definitely could have done is try to show people, you know, why she, you know, should be saved and things like that, but it felt like she did this a little too late. I think she should have been, you know, campaigning earlier than she was, and I think that's what hurt her here.
Mm-hmm.
So the Sunsetters are once again, they're over the moon about this, you know, about being safe. Beth is convinced that Victoria is the HOH at this point, and that they have all the power to decide who ends up going, which they essentially do. I mean, if they're all saved, and this is the thing that, you know, people really do need to start thinking about, is that that's a trio that's very quickly going to be the majority of the house. And as long as they are on the same terms, like, everything's just going to go their way at this point. And Austin talks to Victoria and lets her know that she wasn't trying to target her this week, aside from the fact that everyone said that she would use it on them. And Austin says that's specifically what got to her. And she says she knows it wouldn't be happening if it wasn't this week. And Austin says if she stays, she'll be savage and go after whoever did this to her. Of course, what she doesn't realize is that the person that did this to her is the person that she's talking to. She doesn't think that it's Victoria at this point. I did believe in this conversation that, like, she did not feel this was Victoria. She just was annoyed that Ro did not end up using the veto. And Victoria knows that if Austin figured it out, she'd riot against her. And she's convinced that she needs to find out not from her directly. She has to, you know, if she's going to tell Austin, it needs to come from someone else. And I disagree. I think if Victoria had just been honest with her from the start, I think Austin would respect that more than it coming from someone indirectly. I know for me as a game player, I like hearing things directly from people than indirectly. So I feel like Austin would have probably respected that more. But what do you guys think?
I mean, I would prefer that as well, because I prefer people to actually be straight up and not fake.
Right. That's the thing. Victoria's saying, I don't want to be fake, but then she's kind of being fake to Austin in that sense, which she has to be, but still, it's like kind of hypocritical in that way.
I do genuinely think Austin was sold on the HOH being Ty up until the eviction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
I think definitely when it comes to Ty, like there definitely was a way for her to play it where she could have continued to make people think that it's Ty, and I think it was working up until a certain point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then Victoria goes to Tera and Tina, and Tera doesn't like the fact that no one's talking game today. And Tera says it's impossible to figure out who is really going. Vic says she thinks she's voting Austin because it seems that is where the majority is going, but Vic doesn't have a vote, which of course the house guests don't know that. And they're really sure Beth is HOH this week. Tera says they need to make a move that's better for them and not Beth.
Yeah, which I thought it was interesting that they thought it was possibly Beth that was HOH, because again, it doesn't make sense from Beth's perspective if she was. Like, why would she willingly sell herself out like that? Make it clear that it's her. As the invisible HOH, you want to try to be as secretive as possible. So I don't really think that they thought it was Beth. I feel like they thought it was her. And they just didn't say anything because it wouldn't have made sense if it was Beth there.
And then Tina talks to Breydon, and he says he thinks they have a closer relationship with Austin, but he wants to still be loyal to the oddballs. And Tera says that Beth is very confident that she has Bray wrapped around her finger. And they talk about how next week they have to go for one of Jed and Ty. And Tera loves this pitch since she also wants to go after the same people.
Yeah, and this was definitely really good on Breydon's end, because this is exactly the kind of game that Tera's been trying to do, which is like pit all the guys against each other, and it seems like it's working for her. She's doing a good job of pitting everyone against each other, making sure that Ty and Jed are going after like Ro and Breydon. But what again, the thing that doesn't work as well is that the whole thing with her being loyal to the oddballs. I mean, I feel like the second that Ro decided to not use the veto on Austin and Breydon, that's kind of a sign that the oddballs is kind of done. That's not really a thing anymore, because he didn't save them. They don't feel good with him anymore. And especially considering one of them is going to leave, oddballs is kind of dead. Kind of gone. So I feel like that's something that, I understand why she wanted to be loyal to them, but like oddballs is kind of over.
Yeah.
So Beth tells Austin that she is, and this was a really good moment. I like this conversation that Beth and Austin have here, where basically she tells her that she is expendable to the boys and that they need to work together in order for her to survive. That she, at the end of the day, Jed is going to take Ty over her. And that, I think that's true. Those two have been each other's number ones for a while. I feel like it's very obvious within the house, and Austin says that she would need 4 votes to stay. She at least that she should at least try to keep her. And Beth said that nobody would really suspect that she went against the guys here. And Austin says this is something that they could really own up to in their endgame. And I think this was a good move for Austin, but it felt more like something she did a little too late. I think that's what really ended up hurting her here, is that this is something that they could have legitimately worked out, but she needed to have this conversation with her earlier on, because I think that Beth does agree that, like, I don't think she, as much as I don't really like Beth, she's not stupid. She knows that Jed and Ty have each other over her, and that she's not going to get to the end with both of them, and that eventually she's going to have to cut one of them, so that doesn't happen. just think that Austin might have done it a little too late here, because Beth really is like thinking about this pitch, and she knows that this is true, and she thinks maybe she should consider keeping Austin around this week. And what do you guys think of this pitch overall? Was this a convincing pitch? Was it too late? What do you guys think?
I thought it was a good pitch. Like, I think Beth and Austin could be like a very unexpected duo if they stay in the game. Like, just because they're both like the very like bubbly, nice girls who are kind of just like who gets along with everyone. So I think that they would just be a really cute little duo.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I think definitely it could have worked out really well for them. I just think, again, it's something that she did a little too late because, well, what ends up happening?
Unfortunately, this pitch does not work, and by a vote of 7-0, Austin is evicted, which I'm honestly shook because I thought Beth would at least give her a vote.
I thought she was going to get a couple votes at least. I did not think it was going to be unanimous.
Yeah, I thought it'd be like 5-2 or something.
I had a feeling it would be 7-0.
In her interview, she talks about it, and it may have been a little too late to get fired up, and that she hopes Breydon gets a new outlook on the game without her in there. In the goodbye messages, Victoria absolutely annihilates Austin in her goodbye message and confesses that she's the invisible HOH this week.
And I love this.
I definitely liked it, but she also was very harsh because that's like Victoria can be very harsh in all of her goodbye messages.
I think she was, but it definitely was in such a way where, like, you know, she wanted to make it clear to Austin, like, this is why I did this. I did this to you because of this. You know, you should have given me more clarity. It was like, it's what she's wanted to say to her all week, but she hasn't been able to. And I think if this was a normal week and she did put up Austin and Breydon, and, you know, Austin had known, she probably would not have been nearly as harsh in her goodbye message, because at that point, Austin would have known, you know, why she ended up going. And I do agree with Pranoy here that Beth is not a girl's girl. Yeah, I agree with this. She's definitely someone that's going to go with the boys, unfortunately, and I think that's probably what ended up hurting her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I agree with Jazzy saying here too that it was definitely too late, because that's what, not just because that's what Beth said to her, but also like the way the vote was going at that point, it was just everyone was going to vote Austin.
Yeah. With the invisible HOH twist, either everyone is eligible to compete this week. The comp this week is a quiz surrounding the recent BB calendar. The house guests have been studying the past few days. It comes down to Breydon, Beth, and Jed, and ultimately, Beth ends up winning in a tiebreaker with Jed.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
Beth's HOH is really interesting. It's not what I would have expected. As I said before, I'm not a big fan of Beth, but I am interested to see her actually have to play the game now and not just rely on, you know, her lines, because it does kind of feel like that's a lot of what she's been doing. And I think that's something that we're really going to see this week is like, where is her head at besides just working with Jed and Ty? What does she really want to do?
I don't even dislike her. I just think she can have like some frustrating moments, but I think it'll definitely be interesting.
Yeah, it's cool to see the power swing the other way for sure. I always love that, and so I'm interested in seeing what she does end up doing as an HOH here.
Yeah.
I love a good power shift. So
I accidentally exited out of the notes before I finished off.
All right. Well, I'll read the rest. So
I got it. Arisa makes an announcement that the jury starts next week, but it will also kick off with a double eviction.
Yes, we are going to get a double eviction next week, which I think we suspected was definitely going to happen. It was either going to be that or a buyback of sorts. We did say that was potentially going to happen. And yeah, I don't know. I might agree with Pranoy here. This could potentially happen where she might end up in the same position as I can see that.
I prefer Beth over Holly for sure.
Oh, definitely. I think Beth has more agency in her than someone like Holly, but I do think she could suffer the same fate in that she ends up getting too close to Jed and Ty, and suddenly her moves are their moves and not her move. And I think that could potentially end up hurting her in the end game for sure. So I definitely do see what.
Yeah, we'll see though. Maybe she'll turn on them.
Well, if you ask David from that same season, they're the same person, so you never know.
I mean, pretty much, yeah. It's possible. What's gonna, we'll have to see what she really ends up doing. But anyway, in terms of it being a double eviction, I'm very excited to see what's gonna happen. But also, if y'all don't know, what I normally do on double evictions is I end up doing 2 episodes instead of 1 for that week. So we're going to have 1 episode where we talk about everything leading up to the double eviction. And then we'll have another one next week where we actually are going to talk about the double eviction with a separate guest. And I think that should be a lot of fun. I always love, talking about double evictions. There's enough content to fill up an entire episode. So I'm really excited to see how things are going to go. I think we're in store for a really explosive one coming up soon for sure.
Excited. It's going to be fun.
Especially seeing that due to there being no audience, we do not get spoilers on Twitter. So this will be really, really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing to keep in mind is that the show is not live. The show is not live, but we're not going to get any spoilers because there isn't an audience or anything. And so I think
kind of refreshing, actually. Predictable still, nonetheless, but still.
Yeah, I mean, I will say the one thing that we were robbed of this week because of the fact that they're wearing masks and things like that, I would have loved to see like Austin's reaction to what Victoria said to her. I would have loved to see that. But we can definitely infer how she felt and things like that. And I think in general, this season has been entertaining enough that we don't need all that stuff. We don't need an audience and all that kind of thing. So I'm very excited to see how things do end up going. But that's basically everything that ended up going down this week in terms of Big Brother. Again, I think we're in store for a really exciting double eviction. I think there's a lot of possibilities for where things could really end up going. But before we do end things here, Mike, I am going to give you a chance to, plug all your socials, do your outro, all that kind of stuff.
All right. So a lot of people know me. A lot of people don't. My Twitter is @WonderpuffSSB. I play Super Smash Bros. Here and there. I am trying to learn how to stream. I do not know how to do that yet. My Instagram's the same handle. I'm not really active on there. If you want my Facebook, just ask. And that's about it.
All right. And other than that, guys, that's really it for everything going on this week in Big Brother Canada. Very excited to see what ends up going down next week for sure. That's really it for this video. What?
Also follow Kevin Falk 7.
Yes, and follow you as well, which you should already do. If you don't, you should definitely follow both of our Twitters and all that kind of stuff.
And follow all of us everywhere. Just hit us up for anything and just follow these 2 amazing people.
And follow her as well. You should definitely end up doing that. But anyways, guys, that's it for our review of this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We will see you guys in our next video, and we will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.